colleague Claudia, we have a link up to Tigerbird, to the Tigerbird campus, and we have some people who are sitting in a venue on that side, and they will be part of the discussion if there are any questions. It's the first time we're doing it, so we're jumping up and down, so the excitement every now and then. Please excuse us. My colleague from the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, Auxin, is an advisor in the Center for Health Professions Education at the Tigerbird campus. And she has got a major project going and something that's really taken off very, very well. I work with teaching portfolios in the faculty and at the university and with our charter. And Marietta's got the portfolios going for the MPhil students, and she works with lecturers on the longitudinal portfolios for undergrads and postgrads as well. And further than that, I'm not going to say anything more, and I'm going to give over to Mariette. Very welcome, Mariette, and you can see what the interest is. Yes, I think you're going to get a lot of questions afterwards. But please, your questions are not responded to within this session because the session is limited. You can feel free to email myself or Mariette afterwards, and we will link up in that way. Thank you. Have you got the Tigerbird people going? Thank you. Over to you, Mariette.
Good day, colleagues. Thank you for having me, and also a warm welcome to our colleagues from Tigerbird who are joining us. Digital learning technologies such as electronic portfolios are changing the ways in which students and faculty engage with knowledge and with each other in teaching, learning and assessment. So it's useful for us to explore the opportunities and the pitfalls that these learning technologies bring to the table. Today we will have a quick look at portfolios in general, then explore certain aspects of educational e-portfolios in more depth, and afterwards I will show you on SunLearn on the Mahara portfolio platform what we are currently doing with the portfolio in the info, so that you can see what the possibilities are. Can I just have an indication how many of you are familiar with the SunLearn portfolio or have used it? Okay, so there's a few that will be able to share what they have experienced as well. So portfolios have traditionally been used in the arts for artists to show their best work, but since the late 1980s, they started emerging in various educational and training contexts, first in teacher education programs in the USA, and from there that spread to all kinds of applications across the training and education sectors. The digital formats are currently very much in use and becoming more popular, and we will therefore have an in-depth look at what we can do with that. As you can see, there are various types of portfolios, from learning to assessment and combinations of those, as well as showcase portfolios that people can use to showcase their best work and their achievements. Teaching portfolios are becoming very important, especially for purposes of tenure, promotion, applications for academic positions, and personal and professional development portfolios is something that everyone can use. So each of you can actually start your own portfolio if you have access to SunLearn, and Mahara is also an open source portfolio, so you can also access it from the outside. Looking at educational portfolios, it's very hard to find a single definition for the portfolio because portfolios are so versatile. But from the literature, what comes out is that it's a purposeful, systematic collection of multiple sources of information or evidence that tells the story of a student's efforts, their progress, or their achievements in one or more given areas. And Auxin asserts that this collection must then include student participation in the selection of portfolio content, guidelines for the selection, criteria for judgment merit, and very importantly, evidence of student self-reflection. There's no single prescribed format for portfolios in the literature. Some people prefer digital, others use paper-based, and they are across a range of being very strictly prescribed what content must go into the portfolio to portfolios that are left totally to the learner's discretion. Benefits of portfolios are that they actually personalize the learning experience for students, and they capture skills that are not easily measured by other types of assessment, such as critical thinking, professionalism. So these portfolios are then actually ideal as well to measure things like attainment of graduate attributes or more generic competencies, and the development of metacognitive skills such as reflection and self-regulation are also particularly well supported by portfolios. They also help students to draw connections between their various learning experiences over a course and beyond, and they portray the depth of student learning as well as the breadth. So it shows progress over time as well as how deep learning takes place during student learning. For assessment, one can assess the process as well as the product that students produce. One can assess achievement of course learning outcomes, and in the reflections and the way students portray themselves, one can also see how students experience the curriculum. An important critical ingredient of portfolio building is reflection, and it's important to realize that reflection is a metacognitive skill that, just like all other skills, needs to be practiced and developed. One should never assume that students will automatically know how to reflect. So it's very important when one starts with portfolio building if students are not used to reflecting to actually guide them in reflection in the beginning until they are comfortable with reflection. So if we look at electronic portfolios, we see that they are digital collections, again, of authentic and diverse evidence that represents a person's learning over time. And what is nice about these portfolios is that people can accumulate artifacts in a digital repository, and they can then use these artifacts to build portfolios for various audiences. There's also a journal function which is very nice. These portfolios are mostly published on a portfolio platform, but one can also use a DVD or a CD to save it on if the students don't have access to a portfolio platform. And what is nice about this is that people can periodically go back and review their portfolios. They can update their portfolios with certain achievements and competencies that they've developed. Electronic portfolios are, in the day and age that we live, a lot more economical than paper-based portfolios. It's much more friendlier to the environment as well. They're easy to store and replicate, and what is very nice is students like them because they can use hyperlinks to enhance their presentations, to promote the diversity of their reflections, and to show the evidence that they've accumulated. And more than one person can access the portfolio at a given time. So it's not that it has to first go to this lecturer and then to that lecturer. Students really like to compile electronic portfolios. So this type of learning actually enhances their motivation and their sense of ownership. And as said previously, it enhances the development of metacognitive skills. And what's interesting, when I was building the mock portfolio for today, I found myself reflecting and thinking back to certain experiences that I had. So the mere process of engaging with building the portfolio actually assists with reflection. It develops multimedia skills, and it teaches learners to use digital media to support their lifelong learning. Um, Theoretical foundations of portfolios. Traditionally, we know that constructivism underpins portfolio building because knowledge is actively constructed by students. Self-efficacy theory, documenting achievements and visualizing the learning processes, and self-determination theory by documentation of their personal growth, attainment of learning outcomes, and mastery over challenging tasks, as well as learner autonomy, where they can actually self-decide which forms of evidence they want to include in the portfolio, and that also stimulates critical reflection. With digital portfolios, we also see a new concept emerging, that of connectivism, which actually is a relatively new theory. Some people say it's a learning theory, others say it's a theoretical framework, but it encompasses new developments in digital technology. And basically, what underpins connectivism is the belief that learning can reside outside of ourselves, distributed within a network. So learners make transverse networks through multiple knowledge domains. They continuously acquire new information, and it's more about knowledge creation here than knowledge consumption. What's very interesting that comes to the front are the cyclical learning processes that students engage in when they engage with digital learning technologies. So they connect to a network to share and find information. Then they modify their beliefs on the basis of the new learning, and then they connect again to a network to share these realizations and find new information once more. Connectivism is also driven by the understanding that decisions are based on rapidly altering foundations, so it's vital for students to be able to make distinctions between what is important and unimportant knowledge, and it's also important to recognize when new information alters the landscape that is based on decisions made yesterday, because information comes to the students at such a rapid pace. So if we look at creating resources or resources for creating e-portfolios, you will see that there's a variety, and I will share these slides so that you can go and investigate each of these. One that is quite advanced is the electronic portfolio and assessment system, or the ePass system, that is used in Maastricht University for the medical school, which actually draws in advanced digital assessment systems as well as spider graphs where students can see which competencies are not well developed and need some work on. At present, we use the Mahara system, and I will show you what we've been doing in our program in a little while. But very important, when one gets started with portfolios, it's important to know what is the purpose that you want to use this particular portfolio for. So what type of learning outcomes do I want to achieve? What type of evidence should go into the portfolio? And how will I assess the portfolio? And for portfolio assessment, rubrics actually work quite well. And one can also, in the formative form, apply self-assessment and peer assessment very well. Then it's important to look at what tools, systems, and approaches will be adopted. So what will be the implication of these for the institution, faculty, and students? What are the benefits and the risks? And very important, what support and training will be needed. People don't just automatically engage with portfolios, so it's important to train them. Lecturers do not always automatically start mentoring when they use a portfolio, and also issues such as copyright, plagiarism. If I publish my page, who will use my information to build their own portfolio? So that type of thing. And legal issues, if we work with patient information, what can be shared, to what extent can it be shared? And then the one thing that I've found with our portfolio is the first thing students want to know is, why do I have to build this portfolio? What's in it for me? How do I do it? What must go in it? Who will have access to my portfolio, especially when students are at the beginning of portfolio building and they are doing it for the first time. They don't want everybody to see what they are doing immediately. So it's important that they know that their privacy will be protected. And then they also want to know what will happen to my portfolio in the long term. And with Mahara, what is nice, the SunLearn system can actually be exported to an external portfolio site once students have completed their courses. So to look at a practical example, in our Info in Health Professions Education program, we developed an integrated portfolio that spans across the 2 years of the MPhil in Health Professions Education program. Students compile their portfolio on Sunday and they showcase their portfolio at the end of 2 years. They receive regular guidance and support, and they own their portfolio. So students will be able to export this portfolio at the end of the 2 years. And what we are hoping with this, because it's a Master in Philosophy in Health Professions Education, is to also make these students used to start building a teaching portfolio, because very few of them, when we started off this year, this is the first year that the portfolio is running, actually knew what a teaching philosophy was or were aware of teaching portfolios. So we're hoping to stimulate them using this in the long term as well. So
I know we said that you mustn't be concerned about time, but they can't hear you, so I don't think it's better to stay closer to the
okay, yeah, I'm trying to find a balance here. So. Okay. All right. Is this okay? All right. Okay, so please excuse me for not moving around. Okay, so we start off with contact sessions for the students. We have one at the beginning of each of the 2 years, and we really give them a thorough overview of what the portfolio entails and particularly the technical aspects of the portfolio. We should never assume that students are digital narratives and that they will just jump at portfolio building. A lot of them are really scared to engage with these portfolios. It's postgraduate, it's people who have sometimes not been exposed to technology that much. So we spend a lot of time showing them how to build a portfolio. And then in the second year's contact session, we review, address any unresolved issues. During the year, we also have asynchronous online discussions around the portfolio, and there's also a portfolio group where students can post questions to one another. But what we found with this particular group is that they've actually set up a WhatsApp group. And a lot of the conversations happen on the WhatsApp group. So one always has to keep in mind students connect in ways that we don't always envisage. So the tutor is not on the WhatsApp group. Then with regards to mentoring support, all of our MPhil students are allocated to a mentor in any case. So they have a mentor that goes with them through the 2 years and that they can engage with them in terms of their portfolio building. And I, at this stage, act as the portfolio mentor. So when the students, I think there's about 12 to 14 of them at the moment. So when they post reflections or they update their personal development program, I make sure that I respond to them as soon as possible, just to keep them engaged and provide them with feedback. Just to quickly look at the module outcomes, because one always has to keep constructive alignment in mind when you build a portfolio for your students. So We have our learning outcomes. What is needed, input is needed from the teacher, and how will we assess? So basically we want students to build their own teaching philosophy throughout the course. They must also be able to longitudinally map the achievement of program outcomes across the 2 years. We want to see critical reflection on their learning experiences and own educational practice. And we also want them to engage meaningfully with feedback from members of their community of practice. And as an end result, we want to see them formulate a professional development plan that demonstrates longitudinal progression through the infill program. So the first assignment usually starts when they start with their first contact session, where we ask of students to compile their own teaching philosophy statement. And then after every module, once they've received their completed assignments and the feedback on the assignments, we ask them to reflect on how the feedback and the whole module that they've completed contributed, aligned with, or showed areas for development in their teaching philosophy. So any development areas identified then needs to be worked on in a professional development plan. And then the second assignment is 3 weeks of online sessions where students then engage in a community of practice to share their development over time, to support one another in developing and reaching certain goals, and also to reflect as a community of practice on how they have progressed on their journey up to where they are at the end of the year. And then lastly, there's a narrative essay where students then at the end of the 2 years reflect on how they have grown during the 2 years, how they've achieved certain module outcomes, and what their plan is for the future. And this is where I will take you to the portfolio, because they then need to link this narrative to a collection page that can demonstrate all of these outcomes on the portfolio. So if we go to the Mahara portfolio, those of you with access to Sunlearn, if you open Sunlearn, right here at the bottom, you will see is the Mahara ePortfolio. If you click on that, it takes you to this page, the dashboard page. So the portfolio is organized into creating and collecting, organizing, and sharing and networking. So you can update your profile here, and there's contact information that you can put down, your Skype address, Yahoo chat, and then general. What you can also do is compile your resume. So education and employment, you can upload certificates, you can, with achievements as well, upload certificates, books and publications, professional membership. You can list your goals and your skills, personal, academic and career-wise. And then you can also list your interests. And I've just uploaded a little picture here to show you what it will look like, because you can even incorporate pictures in this. So going back to the dashboard, this is now updating your profile and creating your resume. Here you can upload files. So this is the digital repository where people can store all their artifacts. So you can upload loose files, and I've just uploaded a whole lot of them. And you can build folders where you can then upload files. And you can see there's about 1 gig per student. And I've uploaded a couple of podcasts just to see what type of memory it will take, as well as a whole lot of PowerPoint presentations, and I haven't even used half of this. So there's quite a bit of space on there. And a lot of the stuff can be hyperlinked to YouTube sites outside, so it doesn't take up any of your data. Then to go back to the dashboard, there's also journals. So you can publish a journal and then you can write all your entries in there. So I've just made a quick mock journal. The next part is organizing the portfolio for showcasing. So when one gets to this, it will show all the pages that you've already made, and you can now create new pages. So you can name the page, you can decide how many blocks you want for your page, you can decide how you want to display your page, you can edit the content, and there's a whole lot of stuff that one needs to get used to for how do I draw stuff in. So for instance, if I want files to download, I draw this little block here, and then I can choose which file I want to download. And then lastly, students can form groups and they can decide which groups they want to join. We've started a group for the MPhil students, so there you can see all the members and the forums that we've been working on. So what I want to show you actually is, for instance, when I publish my display page, I can draw in a cover letter, I can draw in my interests, I can draw in my skills, my education history. So if you apply for a job, this can actually lay out your CV. You can show all your friends. So if I click on one of my students' pages, this is what a wall will look like. Different walls. So because the students are still building their portfolios, I didn't ask them for access to their portfolios since they are the owners of the portfolios. So what I've done is to create a couple of mock pages so that you can see how students would typically apply this. For instance, when we ask them to start with their teaching philosophy, they can upload any image that they feel supports their teaching philosophy. They can draw a metaphor. They can even put a little video in that they make of their own teaching philosophy. I'm not going to play this all the way now. And with their personal development plan, they can change the appearance of the page. They can upload the feedback forms that they've received from a 360-degree feedback into files that can be downloaded by the teacher. They can, for instance, display their strengths and their development areas, and they can write a journal entry on this process of 360-degree feedback. Some students find it very hard initially to put down a personal development plan on paper, so they can even put a video of how they've decided to do their personal development plan, and they can revisit this when they update their plan. And then they can create a page where they upload all of their assignments, and again they can have reflections on that. And what I've just done, for instance, also to show you is after I did my pre-doctoral course, this is a little bit slow, but you can even upload PDF documents. There's HTML text in there, PDF. You can create a photo journal, for instance, and there I've drawn in some PDF files that can be downloaded, as well as podcasts that can be downloaded, competence certificate, and then all of your reflections that you are writing on this, and then inspirational videos. This links to a blog post think this internet connection is a little bit slow. Okay, but in any case, so as you can see, there's a whole lot of links that students can draw in, and the mere building of the portfolio can actually help students reflect on their learning, and when they go and they look back at this, they can also see what new skills have I developed since then. And then lastly, students can decide who they want to share their page with. So you can see here, nobody besides you can view your selected pages. So they can decide to share it with other users by just clicking on the name of a user. So I think important when we conclude is to not assume that there's only one definition of an e-portfolio. Because of all the purposes that one can use it for, there's a lot that can be done with it. One e-portfolio system does not necessarily work in all situations, and an e-portfolio cannot just simply replace a paper-based system. It takes a whole lot of infrastructure to support students and lecturers, and the curriculum will not be unaffected by the portfolio. And then I think critical success factors is that when one starts off with this, something this big is also good if you can align it with curriculum or programmatic curriculum revision. It's important to engage with the literature to see what is currently out there and what are the best practices. And very important to consult and collaborate with e-learning specialists or experts, and then training for students and lecturers and continuous support. I think everybody who are currently using electronic portfolios know that students require a lot of support. I can just show you on the, just need to go back quickly. On Sunlearn, our colleagues from pathology and radiation have been uploading, had students upload a portfolio on Sunlearn. I can perhaps get to that afterwards. Yeah. So basically this is what I wanted to show you, and yeah, I'm eager to hear what other people are doing and to hear if there are any questions.
I'm Renal from the postgraduate support office. So it's something that possibly could be used for all postgraduate students to reflect on their postgraduate journey.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But my practical question is, can I, if I make a thing like this, my journal on one side and I want to share other pages, can you set privacy for individual aspects of your portfolio, or can you only choose to make the whole portfolio public or private?
You can create a page where you put everything that you want to share with someone on that specific page. So the rest of your portfolio will remain private, and you just go into that page what you want to share, and you only share it with the people that you want to share.
We spoke about excluding
Yes.
so when student finishes whatever 4 years, 3 years degree, what happens then to the portfolio? Can they continue to build on that? Or
they can continue to build on that. So there's an export link to a for Mahara that they will need, and they can then export the portfolio to the official Mahara site or to any other portfolio site that they will choose. Not as far as I know, we will be looking into that next year, but from what I've gathered, we can continue.
So they can take everything along in their future journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the corporate is very close to no, you don't.
Does anybody have experience with undergrads using this? How does that work?
We have not yet we are looking at a pilot.
Sorry guys, no, you can closer, just repeat the question.
Okay,
Messages for me.
The question is whether there's any experience with undergraduates using this. We are looking at a portfolio pilot next year for the first year group of medical students in the extended degree program. So we are currently building the protocol to see how we can use it in that portfolio. And then I'm not sure with radiology and pathology if one would be able to perhaps try it.
Maybe that would be the best way, because we are going to battle to upload all the portfolios and then in the right places to really access it. So I think in future maybe we must look at the key portfolio site. The student can look at the students, so they share with the consultancies and we access it.
And that is the one thing of what I've shown all the ePortfolio resources for building ePortfolios. One has to really go and investigate what are the implications if I use this system. How secure is the information? How will my students' identity be protected? If students, for instance, publish, so for instance, if I publish one of these pages, and I don't set my settings correctly and I publish this page, then someone can take my picture or they can take my video and they can use it as their own, someone from a different university. So there's all these fears of how safe is my work. And that is also, you see, I haven't really gone into my own students' portfolios because they're still building it. So I have to respect the fact that they're not ready yet to share it with everybody. And one has to give students that kind of security that the information will be protected.
Any questions from Tanya for you?
I'm just curious about the comments within this sort of role and display in the
Basically at this stage to look at the graduate attributes for students to reflect on where and how are they acquiring graduate attributes. So it's basically just to start getting them used to reflecting. The question was how can we use it in the EDP group? So basically just to get them used to start reflecting on where did I learn what about one of these 7 graduate attributes, and maybe bring some evidence into their portfolio. They can even make a little group video or poster that they've presented in class. They can do that in. And like I said, one has to then look at if they bring in patient information, that would then be something that cannot be expected. So there are legal issues that one also has to consider. Portfolios are typically a media that one can use very well for the competencies and the attributes that are difficult to measure with traditional assessments. So for students to reflect on how they develop their professionalism and maybe have conversations, because the other thing is when you build a portfolio, typically in the beginning students will need to engage with a mentor, because like I said, they don't just automatically know how to reflect. So one needs to guide them in their reflections. Sometimes when they reflect on difficult stuff and they don't know how to deal with this reflection. So there's all these inadvertent type of effects that you also get that you need to make provisions for.
Just a question, maybe difficult one to answer is how much support do you need? I mean, we're thinking along the lines of ePortfolio and it might end up being a one-man show. Is it even possible? Should we Should we plan the idea before we start, or is it, is it 5 people that we need, or
Okay, so how much support do you need? At the moment, I'm looking after 14 students, and because it's an asynchronous process, everyone does not update their portfolio at exactly the same time. I find it manageable with the 14 students. I think the idea would be to start small and to build up the portfolio. So to pilot something smaller and see how you, for what type of program are you looking at?
Horticulture, BC.
Okay. And would it be for assessment or showcasing achievement of outcomes?
Probably with a mix. The idea was to bring it in on the first year level, so we can have it from the beginning to the 4 years.
Yeah.
But then you might be talking of students of 100.
Yeah. So it's important to decide what type of support one would want to give students, and if you are going to ask them to do a lot of reflections, or if you want them to upload evidence that somebody will mark. One can also have students present their portfolios to you in front of a panel where they do a 15 to 20-minute presentation. So, yeah, but I think start small.
Sorry, if I can ask just one. Someone from another faculty also asked them, I said to start with the third year, so we're thinking of going into honours. So you start with that small group because both you and the lecturer needs to, both the students and the lecturer need to get into that process. So if you start in that way, then
what I would suggest is build your own portfolio and just a mock portfolio, see what goes into it, what you can draw into it, get used to, because you might need to give the students some technical support as well.
Is there a danger that one would use this and it becomes a distraction? It takes so much time and it absorbs, and people get very playful about the videos. And I know that you listed the benefits right at the beginning, but I wonder if I was to leave here, I'm going to think this is almost dangerous to introduce. So what is it really good for? If you had to say that you saw in your students that it really worked, for what kinds of things would you recommend, the effort that you need to put in?
I think that the question is, can't it be dangerous that it would take up too much of students' time if they get too engaged with building the portfolio and making videos and drawing evidence in? I think there it's important to look at what is the aim of this portfolio. I have shown you a huge variety of what can go into the portfolio, but none of my students have uploaded a video because they don't. I think some of them don't even know how to make a video. You can say that as part of your evidence, I want one video in here, or I want a set of photographs in here. So then it becomes important to, with your constructive alignment, to say what will be a sense, what must go in here, what should not go in here, but link it to the aim of the portfolio.
And the fact that it's an ePortfolio and you've used it now for the first time, have you seen benefits that stood out for you with this group?
I think what was the benefits that stood out with the first group of using an ePortfolio? I think what was nice for me to see is that students now actually start engaging with reflection, because we didn't really see that as much before. But now that they are on the ePortfolio and they've got a reflective journal and they can draw in some of their forum posts and they start reflecting on that. So for me what was nice is to see the reflection that happened. And one of my students actually asked if I can help her. They now are looking at doing it with their first year or second year students. So if you send students out on a community placement, for instance, you can give them an assignment and tell them what they need to upload and what types of evidence they need to upload into the portfolio. Again, if one starts small, you can see what is manageable in your particular program. But obviously, students love digital technology, so that it can become very time-consuming.
Another question, the assessment of portfolio, did you give us any sense in practical terms? How do you communicate the assessment criteria and how do you actually assess it? It can be more intensely working.
Absolutely. So the question is about assessment. What is important when you assess a portfolio is to determine what it is again that you want to assess, so your constructive alignment. And one of the easier ways of assessing a portfolio is to draw up a rubric where you say that it's not acceptable, acceptable, or exceptional. Or one of those types of measurements, and that you then list what it is that you want to assess. And it would definitely have a certain amount of how the portfolio is built and whether the hyperlinks are working, but in the end it's about the quality of the reflections. Are they critically reflecting, or are they only writing a descriptive reflection? So you would have to then state your assessment criteria in the rubric. But rubrics typically work the best.
I'm an engineer, so
Okay. Let's see if Google can quickly help us. I don't have one with me, but I am sure we will quickly find.
I can also send you one. We've been using portfolios now for many years. It's not ePortfolio. For our electives, for our students in the fourth year of the medical program, they do 4 weeks of elective. They have to determine their own outcomes for the elective. They can go any place they want as long as it's helping. The portfolio is used to obtain evidence that they've reached the outcomes. We use a rubric for that. If you remind me, I'll say it.
Okay, so while this is connecting, I can take 1 or 2 more questions. Who else is using Mahara at the moment? So I really think what is important is that one start exploring for yourself. What is possible with this portfolio? What can I draw into this portfolio? What takes me a long time to do? Because that will take your students a long time to do as well. And really look at what is the purpose. A portfolio does not meet the purpose for every type of learning experience and assessment that I want to do. But I also think building your own professional portfolio and writing your reflections and your teaching philosophy statement and updating it will keep you active in working with the staff.
So beginning from support, is so much here. Do we have any critical support? Does web study guys know how to use the phone in?
Yes, the Center for Learning Technologies, they work the same people, Janice's at Tigerberg, and then we have the same center here at Aspen. Jane Bosman and
So they could phone in there and get the help they need.
Taste and Morris from the side, yeah.
So the question was about technical support. I can perhaps just share that one of my students sitting in Tanzania had a problem updating her portfolio. So she emailed our guys at Tigerberg at technical support, and they sorted it out for her within 2 to 3 days.
It doesn't end up on your table, yeah?
No, I refer to technical support. And I think if you start doing an ePortfolio contact with technical support people, I am now looking at making instructional videos on how to use Mahara and how you can bring stuff in. What I've done on the portfolio presentation, okay, this doesn't want to open. But that's typically what a rubric would look like. Something like this. Okay, so on the presentation, what I've done is to just want to get to that page here. If you look at this link here, if you click on this, this is the full user manual for Mahara. So it tells you everything about creating files, uploading files, creating and sharing pages, drawing in hyperlinks. So just click on this link that I've given you. Yeah, and I've written here, don't assume that ePortfolios will save everyone time. That is not true. I think it's a digital learning technology that we are drawing in to support students learning in the way they like to learn these days, but it's not without difficulties. And it's very important to decide on the right type of portfolio system for the portfolios that we want to build. If we look at the medical portfolios, we will definitely at some stage have to investigate portfolio systems that can draw in digital assessment systems and learning analytics.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think we can give I'd like to say thank you to the colleagues from Tigerbird for joining us in this virtual experience, this pilot virtual experience. And also to the colleagues here who come from Tigerbird, from far, for moral support for Maria. And everybody else who's joined. I believe that you're taking away some valuable information today. And if you have any questions, any queries, you're welcome to email myself